Welcome to Today with Dr. Kaye. I'm Dr. Kaye Whitehead here again to have a conversation with you about some of the stories that matter. But first, as we prepare ourselves to get into today's conversation and to think about what we have on tap, coming from our experience, visiting and speaking to the residents at Jessup Correctional Institution. We talked with them about mass incarceration from the inside out. My producer and I sat there with close to 40 residents and listened to their stories, from what happened to lead them there and to what they are trying to do to get out. We are grateful to Jessup for allowing us to come in and to visit. Now, for this first visit, we were not allowed to bring in any recording equipment. So as we walked through Jessup, my producer and I documented our experiences with how we felt and what happened when we spent the day with the residents at the Jessup Correctional Institution. Let's take a listen to it. I walked into the room and was instructed to take off my shoes, any jewelry, my belt, anything that was in my pockets. I placed my belongings in a plastic container and stepped through the metal detector, very similar to the ones that you encounter when you're in the airport. But I was not getting on a plane. I wasn't going out of the country or out of the state, but I was in a foreign land that felt like a whole nother world. My producer and I were instructed to leave our IDs behind and follow the librarian who had invited us to be there. Yuri, when we get inside, I want to make sure that we stay together and that we pass out everything that we need to give them.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. How are you feeling, Kay?
I'm a little nervous because I'm not sure how many people are going to be there. I'm not sure what is expected. I'm not nervous that something's going to happen to us. I'm just nervous that we're not going to be able to give them any information that will uplift them, that will benefit them. I want to leave them better than how we found them.
In some strange way, I'm excited, just because I feel like this is an opportunity for their voice to be heard as well.
I know. I think a lot about the prison system, and we're always talking about what the research says, reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. But now we can talk to the people who are actually living through this situation. And
exactly.
My hope is that I remember to listen more and talk less, because I tend to do a lot of talking and not a lot of listening.
Right. All right, here we go.
Signs on the wall stated rules and instructions for visitations. There is no kissing. There is no hugging unless you're getting ready to leave. You can't give anything to an incarcerated resident. You can't take anything from them. I asked the librarian, what should I call them? I thought maybe incarcerated citizens. I thought perhaps just calling them citizens. He said they like to be called residents. And so I reminded myself as I was walking, residents, they're residents. Do not say the word prisoner. Do not say the word incarcerated. I want to find a way to connect with them. We walked through a number of doors, each one locked before the next one opened. We went outside and we walked between the buildings. I felt like I needed to count how many doors we were going through. There was a moment when I looked around and I saw barbed wire to my left and barbed wire to my right. That it hit me. We were inside of the Jessup Correctional Institution, and when we left, there were folks here who were never going to leave. Good morning, residents. Thank you so much for allowing me to come in here and to talk with you. I'm Dr. Kaye Whitehead of Today with Dr. Kaye, and I'm excited to be here to speak with you during this very important Black History Month. It's 2018, and the theme this year is African Americans in Times of War. My goal today is to spend some time talking with you about Black history, talking about the history of how did we get from there, which was a time of American enslavement, through Jim Crow, to the rise of mass incarceration and convict leasing, to Black Lives Matter, to living in the age of Trump. How did we get here? Before I get started, my producer, Yore, is going to pass out questionnaires and pens.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you? Do you want to participate? All right, here you go. Would you like a pen?
To get a better understanding about how you feel about your situation. I ask you to not put your names on these sheets of papers, to not put your VCU number, but to keep it anonymous. The idea is to allow you to have a voice and to help us understand this very complicated topic, mass incarceration from the inside out. That's right, folks. I was in a prison, Jessup Correctional Institution. But this wasn't the Jessup facility that Baltimore had been known for. This wasn't the notorious The Cut or the House, as it's been known ever since it was built in 1879. Many know that the building was destroyed in 2014 with the help of the inmates. I know that last week there was somebody in here talking with you about Maya Angelou. Many of you describe her as a phenomenal woman, as an actor, as a dancer, as someone who reminds you of your grandmother or your mother. But what did you learn about Maya Angelou? Why don't you just yell it out, and we're just going to write it down on this piece of paper up here.
Mother, actor.
While they were talking,
singer,
my producer and I scribed some of their words. I think they were excited that we were actually taking notes from them.
Phenomenal.
We weren't just talking to them. We wanted to have a conversation with them.
Phenomenal Black woman.
What struck me the most, and perhaps was the hardest part, is that a majority of the men in the room were African Americans. Some of them were old enough to be my father or my uncles. Some of them were young enough that they could have been my sons. There was only one white man, and he sat in the back, and he never participated. There was also an African-American woman there who didn't speak to me or my producer. I'm assuming that she was staff because she sat by the door. Many of the men wore the uniform, light gray, white, and navy blue. Some of them have on kufis. Some of them came prepared with their own pens and their paper. They were used to having these classes. Many of them were taking college courses with the University of Baltimore, and they were seeking out every opportunity to, in their own words, to be better and to help to turn their cells into classroom and turn the prison into a university. So let's talk about how did we get here. I always like to ask people, when did American enslavement legally end? I put down 1865.
No, 1863.
Wait a minute. I know. Many of you are yelling out that we're not yet free. I get that. And this guy over here, you said 1863. That was the Emancipation Proclamation. But the year that American enslavement legally ended was with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in December of 1865. Now, we can talk about what that freedom looks like, and we can talk about whether or not we are actually free, and we can even talk about what we can do to establish freedom, but we have to be clear about the actual legal change that took place, because as we think about it, the real battle is not about laws and policies and practices and procedures. The real battle is with the hearts and minds of people, because if that doesn't change, then freedom will never be freedom for everyone. One of the things I noticed is that men were leaving early. I was told later by the librarian that they either had to go to work or they had to go back into their cells. So there was an interesting mix happening as people were leaving, people were getting more comfortable. But I opened up the mic and I said, now that I've been talking to you for the last half hour, 40 minutes, why don't you talk to me? What do you think about your situation? What do you think we can do to change it? if you had a message for young people, if they were listening, young black males in Baltimore City, what is the message that you would give to them? And it was surprising because when we opened up the mic, almost every person, one by one, got up to share a message, to share a poem, to share a quote. They wanted to speak out, and they wanted to use Today with Dr. Kaye as a vehicle to get their message out to Baltimore City. I told them that we always look to blame the system. The system is rigged against us. The system is at fault. And I am not saying that that's not true, but I challenge them to think about what we can do. How can we change this situation? That we may not be able to do anything to change their situation at this moment, but they can help to change somebody else's situation. One of the residents responded by sharing this poem. Black Power. The time is now. The time is ours. Put your fist in the air and say Black Power. Black showers rain on me. Take these chains off of me so I can fly
away. Woke up sober, felt like I was high today. Took a knee like Kaepernick. Closed my eyes and prayed. Hope another brother won't have to die today. Too many Freddie Graves, Trayvons and Mike Browns getting gunned down. We need to turn this tide around. The time is now. The time is ours. Put your fist in the air and say Black Power. Put your fist in the air and say black is beautiful. But y'all acting like black is new to you. Pay attention to what the system will do to you. Got you on the corner selling pharmaceuticals. The CIA put the crack in the neighborhoods. Now what's really good? I hear you, man, but I got to get this money. Sick and tired of being bummy. Going to bed hungry with nothing to eat. Ain't got nothing sweet on the city streets. I love my city, but I ain't trying to die trapping. I love Tupac and Biggie, but I ain't trying to die a rapper. Every time I turn on the news, I hear Black Lives Matter. Every time I hear gunshots, Black lives scatter. And I thought Donald Trump was going to make America great again. He geeking and tweeting. He about to make America hate again. What will it take to end the violence, the massacres, the shootings? Don't want to be the problem no more. I want to be the solution. Like the Black Panthers and Huey P. Newton. Black people rise up. Open your eyes. Let's stop killing, because all we got is us. The time is now. The time is ours. Put your fist in the air and say, Black Power.
I've spoken at a lot of places around the country and around the world, from the White House to schools here in Baltimore City. I was in a different space at Jessup. I felt that the residents really listened to me. When I ended, they came up. So many of them wanted to shake my hand, wanted to thank me for coming in. One resident said, I thank you for seeing us. One resident shook my hand, and then he took his fist and put it over his heart. And he said, you are a phenomenal woman, and it was a pleasure to meet you. So many of them listen to the show every day, and to have an opportunity to be able to use the show to share their feelings, to me, gets to the point of Today with Dr. Kaye. It has their ear. It has our attention. And it was great to be on the road and share this platform with them. So that was just a little bit about our experience visiting Jessup earlier this week. As noted in the beginning, we were unable to take recording equipment into the prison, so we documented our experiences. We wrote down what they said. We took their questionnaires back and we put that together at the hands of my producer, Iyori Odigizua, to give you a sense of what it was like. Folks, I sat there with about 40 or so residents, and what's interesting is that some of them are looking forward to being released within the next year, while others have been there for over 20 years. They came into the prison when they were 16 or 17 years old. There was one man who is getting ready to turn 39, another one who's getting ready to turn 45. One gentleman said he had been there so long he didn't know exactly when he had come in. I think there's something to be said for a system, and one of the residents pointed this out to me, that keeps juveniles in jail for life. In doing the research since that time that I spent with them, I realized and found out that the United States stands alone as the only nation that sentences people to life without parole for crimes committed before turning 18. Think about that, folks. You are 16 or 17 years old and you make a very, very bad, a very stupid, sometimes a life-altering decision, and you go to prison. And you can potentially be there for life. You can never see the outside again. The United States is also the world's leader in incarceration. I want to spend the next hour or so talking about mass incarceration, thinking about what we can do to reimagine that system. What can we do to deal with recidivism rates? How is it possible that we can help our young people, the ones who are still here with us on the outside, make better decisions? Every single one of the residents that we talked to gave messages for young people. I want to share them with you. And I also want to open up the phone lines to you. Maybe you have a story that you want to share. Maybe you have a family member who is dealing with the mass incarceration system, who has just come home and trying to figure it out. Maybe you have a solution for how we can rethink mass incarceration. And what does it mean that we live in a country where Black people are 13% of the population, but we make up 40% of the prison population? Maybe you're someone who used to be incarcerated, whether for a long period of time or even a short period of time. We would like to hear your story today. 410-319-8888. Let's talk about mass incarceration. Folks, here, there are 2.2 million people in the nation's prisons and jails. That is a 500% increase over the last 40 years. That's how much we have been putting people into the nation's prisons and jails. There have been changes in laws and policies, but not changes in the crime rate. And we're trying to get to the bottom of this. And what is happening as a result of this is that we have overcrowding in prisons. There is a fiscal burden on states. We're living in Maryland. And in Maryland, if you just use Baltimore City as an example, here in Baltimore City, we spend roughly a little less than $16,000 per pupil in school. But we spend as a state about $40,000 per prisoner, per inmate, per residence. There's increasing evidence that large-scale incarceration is not an effective means of achieving public safety. Folks, there's something about that we are doing wrong. We're locking up more people. Let's be clear, more Black people. But it's not changing the reality of what is happening out here. We're going to throw these phone lines open, 410-319-8888. Let's talk about mass incarceration. I have Eleanor on the phone. Eleanor, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, and you're a new caller?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I always ring my bell and I say, welcome to the family. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about mass incarceration.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know that, I have a solution per se, but I think it's something to be said about instituting anger management, conflict resolution, and mediation, starting from, elementary school all the way up. And when these young men and women get in trouble with the law, why not have mandatory conflict resolution classes that they have to go to?
I'm going to put that
maybe
down.
even in lieu of incarceration, take the 6-month course. If you pass, then we'll talk about sentencing guidelines.
I like that. I put that down. Anger management courses, because I think it will be good, because I know that the residents of Jessup are listening. So I do want to be clear with some of the solutions. And I'm going to share some of theirs as well. So Eleanor, you said anger management courses as a potential means of getting to the heart of what's driving them. Conflict resolution courses when they have committed low-level crimes. Instead of going to prison, take this mandatory course, right?
Yeah, conflict resolution. So many people, they don't realize it takes about a minute to make the wrong decision, and it affects you for the rest of your life. If you just learn how to manage that anger and channel it better, maybe we can help these kids, starting from elementary school.
All right. Thank you so much, Eleanor. I like what you just said. It takes about a minute to make a wrong decision.
Yeah, it
just
changes the course of your whole entire life.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Eleanor. Folks, I'm going to start sharing these things in between your calls. I have one sheet here. I asked them, do you feel you've been both punished and rehabilitated? Every single one of them said absolutely. They have been punished, but they have not been rehabilitated. What does rehabilitation look like? Many of them said they have rehabilitated themselves, that it's not what happened to them inside of the prison system, that some of them are arguing that the prison system is corrupted and that inside the prison system, they don't do enough to change the reality of the situation. They don't help people to deal with how to break the cycle. So when they get back, they stay out of prison instead of getting in the cycle where they go back. I have Ricardo on the phone. Ricardo, welcome to the show. And they tell me you're a new caller?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the family, sir. How are you?
I'm all right.
Good.
I think that the biggest issue with society as a whole is that nobody raises their children anymore. You know, we look at the system to do everything. When I was growing up, you were held accountable for your actions. You know, the norms, some right and some wrong, that were in place are all gone. So nothing is out of bounds anymore. So children are growing up. They don't have any respect. You know, when I was growing up, it was frowned upon for a child to be 14 and 15 years old having sex and having children. Nowadays, that's just it's normal.
Right.
It's not, nothing is frowned upon anymore. And it's never going to change. It's only getting worse because the children, you know, everything is this gangster rap music.
Right.
That's what they glorify. Nobody has any respect anymore. I'm a black man. When I was growing up, it was always the white people that my parents and them sat up and looked at and talked about. If we fell out in the store and had a tantrum, that we would get out, that, you know, we would get a beat. You know, nowadays, the black people, our people, are just as bad as the white people. We don't raise our children anymore.
All right. Thank you so much, Ricardo. I'm going to stop you there. We're going to take a quick break, folks. Ricardo, thank you. I did write down what you said, that nobody is raising their kids anymore, in particular, those of us within the black community. We're going to wrestle with that when we come back. Folks, we want you to join this conversation, 410-319-8888. We're talking about mass incarceration. I also want to invite people who have been a victim of crime. I'd like to hear your suggestions, your ideas, and the impact of that situation on you as well. This is Today with Dr. Kaye. I'm Dr. Kaye Whitehead. Stay with us.
Did you miss your favorite WEAA public affairs show this week?
This is a two-way conversation. Phone lines are open. Join in on the discussion. First-time callers are encouraged. Questions or comments? 410-319-8888.
Lift every voice and sing earth, heaven, ring.
Welcome back to Today with Dr. Kaye. I'm Dr. Kaye Whitehead. We are talking about mass incarceration. I had an opportunity to visit Jessup Correctional Institution earlier this week and had an opportunity to hear the stories of some of the residents. Folks, I just want to put out here that African Americans are more likely than white Americans to be arrested. And once arrested, they are more likely to be convicted. And once convicted, they are more likely to face stiff sentences. Black men are 6 times as likely to be incarcerated as white men and Hispanic men. Think about that. 6 times as likely. Black people make up 13% of this population, and 40% of the mass incarceration population. There's something wrong with the way that we are thinking about and executing incarceration in this country, because it is impacting and gutting the black community. And I'm not someone who's standing up and saying that crime is okay. I'm saying, can we rethink this situation? There's a gentleman there that I came across while I was in Jessup, and what I thought was interesting is that he said he had come in when he was 16 years old. He has been incarcerated for 28 years. He said the system is designed to keep men and women inside of them. This is a business. I said, what do you think it will be like when you re-enter society? He said, I'll be starting my life in a progressive manner, doing what I've been preparing myself to do all of these years. He has, at this point, no chance of being paroled. He's serving triple life sentences. He said, the system is definitely punishing me. However, I have been proactive, doing what I need to do. He is there, he said, because of poverty, drug addiction, and not making good decisions. And what he regrets is the pain to all the families involved, including mine. He said if he had to give a message to young people, he would tell them to get a grip on their minds and hearts and make progressive decisions about their lives and become assets to their families and community. He went in at 16. He's been there for 28 years. Maybe we need to rethink incarceration. I want to hear from you. 410-319-8888. Apache's on the line. Apache, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Dr. Kaye.
How you doing?
For taking my call, my little daily call.
Absolutely. I love it. No problem.
Okay. So I don't even know where to begin. This is a very complex issue dealing with this mass incarceration, but several things need to happen, in my opinion, in order to change the now culture of just locking up everybody.
Right.
And I'm saying that as an African-American police officer myself. Number one, the law needs to be taught in the schools as a life skill to our youth.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah. We wait until it's too late, until they're in a situation where they're dealing with adult situations with adults who are just making decisions of their life in courts, and they don't even know what laws they've really even broken, or the impact of that, what that law is going to mean once that sentence comes down. So I believe that, if that's part of their life skills education, that needs to be, life skill education needs to be integrated into our curriculum.
I like that.
Which is not.
But
that. If that's one of their life skills education, then at least they will, as a child or growing up as a teenager, as a young adult, they will at least know the consequences of their action, of what they're possibly, facing if they, take that step or they do that action. Next thing, we need to stop this industrial prison system that's going on,
right?
Because it is a corporation, making money type of prison, system that's happening where they're making money off of these prisons, $40,000 per person.
Come on,
that's ridiculous. That's insane. It would be much more cheaper to the state. And I'm saying if we wanted to look at it financially, it'd be much more cheaper to the state, to each state, to simply educate or come up with programs or come up with community-based programs. It's cheaper to do it that way. You'll spend a lot less money doing it that way than simply to lock the person up. And thirdly, this predatory policing, okay? All the listeners, you're hearing it from a cop. This predatory policing that's going on in our communities needs to stop. As citizens, you need to demand more from your police department, your local police departments and sheriff departments. Demand that they stop this predatory policing on your fellow citizens.
Folks, we're going to have to leave it there. We have had a powerful conversation here about mass incarceration. I want to share one thing that was written by Victor. Victor is a resident at Jessup. He said, when the lights go out and sins are committed, we don't blame the ones who sinned. We blame the ones who turned out the lights. He said, sometimes when you're talking to people in our community, what can you say to a dead man, to a zombie who has no hope? He said, we have to find a way to restore the hope and bring our young people back to life. Remember that here on Today with Dr. Kaye, your voice matters, your opinion matters. We tell stories that matter. We are here for you, and we are listening, because if it has your ear, then it has our attention. Right here on Public Radio, WEAA 88.9 FM, absolutely the voice of the community. Enjoy your weekends of the community. Enjoy your weekends of the community. Enjoy your weekends of the community. Enjoy your